This week has been one of the craziest in football history. The world of football was turned upside down when a small group of elite clubs tried to kill the Champions League to form their own competition called the Super League. This was a total revolution for football, and news have been coming in every few minutes, so we basically didn't get any rest. And many of you are still confused about what this whole Super League thing actually was. So now that things have cooled down a little bit, I decided to make this video to break down this whole Super League drama for you guys, and there is a lot to talk about. What is the Super League? Why did it fail? What is my opinion on this whole concept? And most importantly, what changes do we need right now to save European football? All summed up for you in this video. Let's go! First of all, the question, what exactly is the Super League? Essentially, the Super League was supposed to become the new elite competition in European football, replacing the UEFA Champions League. It is based on 15 of Europe's biggest football clubs, the so-called founding member clubs. Those 15 would then never play in the Champions League or the Europa League ever again. They would always be in the Super League. And this also tells us that the Super League is completely independent from the governing bodies of football, FIFA and UEFA. It is in fact a breakaway league from the traditional structures of the game. And basically the Super League represents the American takeover of European football. Why that is, I will explain that later. But first we need to talk about the clubs involved. Who were these guys that actually tried the historical move of breaking away from FIFA and UEFA? So the founding members of the Super League who tried to push this idea through came from 3 different nations. The top 3 teams from Spain, Real Madrid, FC Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, were part of these founding members. And then obviously also the big 6 from England, Manchester United, Liverpool FC, Manchester City, Chelsea, Tottenham and Arsenal. And finally we have the 3 dominant teams in Italy, Inter, Milan and Juventus. So 3 from Spain, 6 from England and 3 from Italy. That is not 15, that is 12, right? Good observation guys, because 3 founding members were still missing to complete the initial 15 members. And the clubs that were invited were probably Bayern and Dortmund from Germany and Paris Saint-Germain from France, but all of these 3 declined the offers. So that's why these 12 clubs formed the Super League and were still looking for 3 more clubs to join them. And now how was the Super League supposed to look like? How were they gonna play it? Is it just these 15 clubs playing each other every year? Well, similar but not quite. Here is the format of the Super League. So the league would be played every year and it would consist of 20 teams per season, of which 15, so 75%, would be made up of the 15 founding clubs, as these clubs would have guaranteed spots for every single season to compete. They won't be able to get relegated from the league, they won't be able to get kicked out, they have their safe spots every single year, no matter what happens. And then you see these 5 green dots at the bottom. Those are the 5 teams that are allowed to play in the Super League despite not being founding members. And those 5 would be different every year, as they would have to qualify themselves every year for the Super League through their domestic leagues, through the Champions League, through achievements made in the prior season, in the previous year. So this could potentially be clubs like Ajax, Sevilla, Napoli, whatever. 15 founding members plus the 5 qualified teams that are not founding members of the Super League. 20 teams, and how were they going to play that? Would be difficult, right? So the Super League would start with a group stage of 2 separate groups, each consisting of 10 teams. So this, for example, could be the group stage of the Super League. Each of the 2 groups has a few founding members and a few qualified teams. And then each club would play the 9 opponents in their respective group, once home and once away, adding up to 18 match days in the group stages. It is important to note that all of these Super League games would be played midweek, so they would definitely rival the Champions League. And then, after each Super League club has played those 18 group stage games, the top 4 teams of each group would advance to the quarterfinals. So in our example here, this would be Real Madrid, Manchester City, Man United and Juventus in the first group, and Barcelona, Liverpool, Inter and Tottenham in the second group. There would be no round of 16, they would directly go to the quarterfinal, and after that the competition would go on just like we know it from the Champions League. With 2 legs, home and away, you get the semi-final then, and eventually you get to the final, which is played in just 1 leg at a neutral ground. Now let's talk about the money in the Super League, because isn't that the only reason why those 12 clubs actually wanted this competition in the first place? So the numbers have to be convincing, right? Well, they certainly are. The founding members of the Super League would receive a so-called welcome bonus of 3.5 billion euros. Each club would get a different stake of this depending on their size, but it ranges from 100 million euros to 360 million euros per club just for joining the Super League in the first place. So this welcome bonus is mostly supposed to cover some of the debt that many of those big clubs have, but that is only half of the story, because additionally the Super League clubs would receive a total of 3 billion euros per year in broadcasting revenue. And that is again money that ranges from 150 million to 250 million euros per club every single year. So including the welcome bonus, the biggest clubs in the Super League could receive as much as 600 million euros just from this league in the first year. Man, that is totally crazy, but who pays this money? And now we get to the first reason why the Super League is also called the American takeover of European football, because the main investor in all of this is the American bank JP Morgan, one of the biggest banks in the world. And they offered to finance this Super League and pay the clubs this welcome bonus to make this thing happen. And then the 3 billion euros broadcasting revenue in the first year also have to come from somewhere, right? And that is why JP Morgan tried to sell the broadcasting rights of the Super League to companies like Amazon, Facebook and Disney to actually stream these games. And with these broadcasting partners plus potentially others, it was estimated that the Super League could generate as much as 10 billion euros every single year over the course of the next 2 decades. 10 billion euros per year. Just imagine what this would mean for the participating clubs. Yeah, that sounds very promising, and that is also why the clubs wanted to sign the Super League contract for 23 years right from the start. Speaking of the clubs, who are actually the main man behind this decision? Which club owners or presidents pushed this new idea? Most importantly, Real Madrid's president, Florentino Perez. He was supposed to be the chairman of the new Super League. And then he would have 4 vice chairmen who are all huge supporters of the idea. Those are Andrea Agnelli, the president and owner of Juventus, Joel Glazer, the owner of Manchester United, Stan Kroenke, the owner of Arsenal, and John Henry, the owner of Liverpool. Here is another aspect of why this is called the American takeover of football, because Glazer, Kroenke and Henry, the owners of England's 3 biggest clubs, are all Americans and they were main man behind this Super League idea. And all of the 3 also own American sports teams, for example in NFL or MLB. And these leagues obviously already have that American system where you can't get relegated. So these 3 were desperately pushing to get that in European football too. Now you have 12 of the most powerful football clubs in the world, most of them run by billionaire owners and huge corporations, and the whole Super League thing is in itself backed by one of the most powerful banks in the whole world, JP Morgan. Now was there any way that this assembly of influential people could still be stopped and this idea could be crushed? Here we get to the next point. We've been talking about the supporters and the leaders of the Super League, but who are the enemies of the Super League who want to stop this thing? Now, first of all, football's governing bodies, FIFA and UEFA, immediately reacted with strong statements of disapproval against the Super League. They wanted to fight it. And the top domestic European leagues and football federations joined them in this fight. Obviously the Premier League, La Liga and Serie A, who would all lose teams to the Super League, fought against this, but also the Bundesliga, who wouldn't lose any teams since their teams declined, they spoke out strongly against this. And then we got the strong reactions that those Super League leaders certainly didn't expect to this extent. Politicians spoke out against the Super League and announced legal action, including British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the European Union. A very ironic combo, but they joined forces against the Super League. Then world-class managers spoke out, including those who are at Super League teams like Pep Guardiola. Many active or retired players released their statements against the Super League, including all Premier League captains, David Beckham, Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville, Kevin De Bruyne, and so on and so on. And then what was most emotional were the millions of fans who spoke out against the Super League on social media, including thousands who actually protested on the streets, for example the Chelsea fans, for example the Liverpool fans. It was really heartwarming. And it even went so far that FIFA, UEFA and the domestic leagues really got serious and threatened the Super League clubs. The Premier League, La Liga and Serie A said that all of their clubs who decided to join the Super League would get kicked out of those domestic leagues, even though the plans of those clubs were to stay in the leagues and just play the Super League instead of the Champions League. But the domestic leagues did not want to mess around. They considered this an attack on the football system, so they were ready to kick out those clubs. And obviously UEFA said that the Super League clubs would never be allowed to play in the Champions League or Europa League again, but that would be obvious because they didn't even want to play in those competitions ever again. But the craziest warning came from FIFA themselves, because they said that every player in the Super League would no longer be allowed to represent their country in the national teams. That meant every Super League player would be banned from the World Cup and the Euros. So after all, the world of football was literally at war for 2 days, with two powerful sides fighting each other. You had the 12 huge Super League clubs and their owners on the one hand, backed by one of the biggest banks in the world, JP Morgan, and FIFA, UEFA, the football federations and basically everyone else on the other side. And in this quick war, fans protested the hell out of their clubs. Every football fan who has some sort of influence spoke out, and FIFA and UEFA surely did a lot of dirty deals in the back end. But after all, what matters is we have won this war. The Super League is gone. So how did this powerful Super League empire fall so quick? Manchester City were the first of the 12 clubs to withdraw their participation, and the 5 other English clubs followed the same day. So then there was only the Spanish and Italian teams left in the Super League, and those Italian teams also left the other day. So it was basically a domino effect that after one team left, everything more or less fell apart. So after 48 hours of complete drama in the football world, the Super League was finally cancelled, abolished, killed, and the fans had won. So now I'm gonna tell you my own opinion on the Super League idea and why us fans cannot stop now, why we need to keep fighting to save European football. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So, am I a fan of the Super League? Absolutely not. First of all, the Super League is essentially a closed competition for those 15 founding members who can never get relegated, no matter how bad they play. They can never go down in this league. They will always be guaranteed a spot. That is against the principles of football. Come on. It might work in American sports, but it's not for European football. The beautiful game is based on a pyramid system. It's based on relegation and promotion. It's based on a system where you have to earn your big rewards and you have to earn your spots to play in these top level competitions. And such a closed competition like the Super League, with 15 clubs having wildcard spots and guaranteed big revenue every single season, and all the other smaller clubs having to qualify every single time, which eventually will only increase the gap between poor and rich. This competition may never ever exist in European football. As Pep Guardiola said it, it's not a sport if winning or losing does not matter anymore. Point number 2, monotony. You might think it's amazing to see Juventus face Barcelona 3 or 4 times per year, to see Liverpool face Real Madrid every single year, to see these big games every single week. But look, I'm gonna drop a wise quote here to make me look smart. Everyone wants it to be Christmas every day. But if it was actually Christmas every day, how long would it take you to get sick of it? And that is exactly what would happen with the Super League too. If you had these big thrillers, these huge clashes every single week, there wouldn't be special anymore. It just waters down the excitement for such big games. These games are so special and so anticipated because they only happen once or twice a year. And with the Super League, these amazing games would not be special anymore. They would just be normal, and in my opinion it would get very boring. This is called hype inflation. And point number 3, why I find these plans pathetic and ridiculous, is the COVID argument. Florentino Perez and all the big owners say constantly, yes, us as big clubs, we are in such a big crisis after the pandemic. We cannot pay our wages anymore. We have huge debt, and that is only due to the pandemic. It's not our fault. Bullshit. The reason why so many huge clubs are in such big financial problems right now is not the pandemic. The pandemic is just the icing on the cake. But the fact is that many of these clubs, especially Spanish and Italian ones, are money-burning machines. Over the last decade, they haven't found a way to build a sustainable business model that can actually secure their long-term future. And instead, they're just paying more wages, they're just taking on more debt, and that is why they're in this situation right now. And yes, the pandemic was what made the bubble burst, but it was not the reason. The reason was massive mismanagement on their side. And that is completely their fault, completely on them. Look at clubs like Bayern, one of the best run clubs in the world. Did they have revenue losses in the pandemic? Of course they had. Everyone had. But did they have serious financial problems due to that in the pandemic? They didn't, because they have enough cash reserves. They've planned for the future. They're not spending stupid wages. They're not taking on stupid debts. Clubs like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, it is your fault that you are in this situation right now. Deal with it. It is not the fault of the pandemic. Don't make these silly excuses. So after this huge Super League drama, what is happening to European football right now? What do we have to do to save it? To finish this off, guys, I just want to say we have won. It is a great win for us fans, for football, that the Super League is cancelled, but we all know the intentions of these owners, of these clubs. Now, they are definitely going to try it again, maybe with a slightly different model, but they will be trying to push football further and further into this direction of a closed elite competition. And we also have to take this win with a grain of salt, because neither FIFA nor UEFA are much better than those Super League clubs and those owners. Here we picked the lesser of two evils, but both FIFA and UEFA have proven to be very corrupt. They've proven to pull off a lot of dodgy moves that harm our game, so we must fight for radical change in these associations next. And here I think this is the perfect timing to take on a full revamp of the beautiful game in Europe next, or worldwide. I think at this point it's inevitable that we seriously fight for the implementation of concepts like the German 50+1 rule that gives the voting power to the fans in every club. I can make a video on that too. If you don't know what that is, I will make it soon. And, for example, salary caps, as they have it in the American sport, might be a good thing for football too. A lot of things to keep in mind here, and I think we should be fighting for that. I'm gonna make some videos in the next weeks on ideas how us fans can take control over our game back, because we've had enough. It's about time. This is not the game of some billionaire owners who don't have any clue what this game is about. Football is for the fans. This is our game, and that's why we need to fight for it. So you might have noticed this was a very important video for me to drop. I'm very passionate about this. I'm gonna calm down now. Simply keep in mind that we've just won one battle, not the whole war, because the war is still going on. This was my little rant. If you share the same opinion, feel free to leave a like. Fiago is out. Peace.